Of course I think we can win, and I'm fighting every single day to win.
We've now put forward a plan that... Is that bird worrying you?
Yeah. They're afraid of us. They can see that our movement is growing.
Well, you're not going to have a stand in the Parliament.
Let there be 1,000 lessons learned as far as I'm concerned.
This is the 4ZZZ Break the Election podcast for the Queensland state election in 2024.
Hello and welcome to the 4ZZZ Breaks the Election podcast, just 15 days from the 2024 Queensland state election. My name is Kate Parsons, my pronouns are she, her, and I am a journalist at 4ZZZ. Joining us today are...
Lauren Bartholomew, my pronouns are she, her.
And Izzy Arif, my pronouns are he, him.
In this podcast series, we will be bringing you up to date on the election and breaking down what is being said and why.
First up, in Mareeba, west of Cairns, Stephen Miles has pledged $20 million to expand the Mareeba Hospital if Labor is re-elected. This would see the emergency department capacity expanded and an important investment in underserved rural health services. Also announced is that the pharmacy scope of pilot program would be made permanent and expanded. The program allows a pharmacist to prescribe and administer medicines such as contraceptive detection pills and treatments like UTI. Hailing the success of the program, Miles said, "This is an initiative I'm really proud of. It's using our health staff to their full scope of practice and using those fantastic pharmacy resources in just about every town." Similarly, the Premier has continued on the health trend, announcing the proposed creation of 16,000 frontline healthcare workers should he win the election.
Crisafulli has again refused to comment after a message to branch members claiming the state had been captured by transgender ideology has emerged into public spotlight. The email was sent by anti-abortion activist Alan Baker on party letterhead in September and called on the next LNP government to, quote, ban puberty blockers to minors with gender dysphoria. Baker wrote, Labor governments in Queensland and other Australian states and territories have been captured by transgender ideologies and are yet to catch up to the science. Questions about the email was deflected by the state opposition amid growing pressure for Crisafulli to clearly identify the LNP's policies on abortion, voluntary assisted dying and transgender rights. So some questions on this are, will the party's stance on social issues like transgender rights and abortion policies harm their chances of winning over the state's more progressive electorates? So these are the growing concerns among the LNP in the lead up to the upcoming state election. So we saw in the 2022 Australian federal election, Vote Compass was used for an electorate analysis. It found that the most right-leaning state is Queensland, which accounted for half of the right-leaning seats. And Brisbane was also more conservative on the political spectrum. So policies like banning abortion and limiting transgender people's rights might resonate for some who have more Christian values. And then the fight for abortion policies is also fresh in the mind of Queensland voters after it was decriminalised only a few years before that. So older generations and people who are voting for parties that sway, like bring in their religious attitudes into their policies might be more inclined to vote for these bills, but it's tricky to tell. Another question is, what is the Labor's stance on the issue and how has the government protected or failed the LGBTQIA+ communities since Albanese's appointment? One of the biggest issues we saw or contentions was the Queensland Labor Party had shelved reforms to stop faith-based schools discriminating against gay teachers and students. So there was a recommendation to scrap the genuine occupational requirement clause that enabled faith-based schools to discriminate against teachers based on their sexuality, pregnancy, relationship status, and gender identity, and that was not passed. So it'll be really interesting to see what Labor responds to with this because we haven't really seen much in this upcoming election.
And on Wednesday the 10th of October, One Nation disendorsed Chatsworth candidate Jasmine Harte due to both her attempted murder allegations and nude modelling photos of herself published online. The attempted murder case dates back to 2011, where Ms. Harte had allegedly arranged for her boyfriend to kill a man over a drug debt worth $1,000. The couple had allegedly lured the man to their home in Coorparoo, where her boyfriend shot him in the stomach. The charges against Ms. Harte were eventually dropped. Regarding the illicit photos of Ms. Harte, they were from her time as a model and actor in her 20s and found on a talent casting website. One Nation campaign director Damien Huxham said that all of their candidates are expected to meet high standards and recruitment staff are to have thorough vetting procedures. Ms. Harte admits that she has had a colourful history, that she had made mistakes in the past, but she's willing to stand up to make a change. She also highlights that she is not ashamed of her distinct past and that she may return to politics in future, stating that people might have more trust and faith in someone like myself to keep the politicians honest. And I guess the question, guys, is whether having nude photos of yourself online and like having a past as nude sex worker, yeah. I guess.
In that vein.
In that vein, yeah, disqualifies you from being a politician.
I mean, no more than being a member of One Nation should.
Yeah. I mean, if we did have someone who did have that kind of past, they would have a different perspective on the kinds of laws, like worker protection laws.
There might also be some interesting questions here around sex education in schools. And that
absolutely,
kind of
which relates back to your story about
schools actually cracking down on kids with different sexual identities.
Yeah.
So it'd be actually a great idea to have someone with that experience being in power, because they can be like an advocate for them and actually bring it forward rather than putting them under a rug, which is what is happening to her. I mean, minus the alleged.
And by no means her specifically, given her murder allegations or her
attempted murder.
Her participation in attempted murder.
But also interesting would be something around how they probably have a slightly better understanding of new media than a lot of other, because you think about it, Anthony Albanese talking about banning social media for children and that kind of thing. I'm sure someone who's actually been in a more related field would probably tell you, look, the government's track record in trying to censor internet access for young people is kind of garbage, and it seems to be a bit of a Sisyphean task.
Absolutely.
And what are they doing for other platforms like OnlyFans? They're cracking down on Instagram. What about the sexually related ones?
It's hard. I believe OnlyFans itself is doing some, or has in the past, tried to limit explicit content. I don't know if that's been very successful. Well, you see, all these things are about making the platform safe for advertisers after a certain fashion here, right?
And that is all we have for 4ZZZ Breaks the Election podcast today. For more updates, you can find us on 4ZZZ in our morning bulletins, Brisbane Line on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at midday. And make sure to catch the Pineapple Rebellion at 9 a.m. on Fridays. If you want to support this project, subscribe to 4ZZZ at 4ZZZ.org.au/support. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. Goodbye.
See you later.
Bye.